students, let us understand the types of friction. We are having three types of friction: static friction, sliding friction and rolling friction. We have discussed that friction arises due to the irregularities in the surfaces. Just now we are having this surface, two objects, this lead and this box are kept on this surface. They are not sliding, they are not rolling. That means just now they are having this static friction. These objects are at rest on this surface. If I want to measure that how much static force this surface is applied on these two objects, then we are having one instrument which is known as spring balance. This spring balance is if tied with any object, and if we are pulling that, then this spring will move, and as a result we can see that how much force is applied by the object. So let us try with these two objects. For this first object, as you can see that it is moving very easily. Now let us try with this box. You can see that in this case the box does not move so easily, and here the spring is showing the reaction. You can see the movement of the spring. So we can understand that mass of the object is also equally responsible for the frictional force. Instead of this static friction, if I will push this object, so now it has been started sliding. So the sliding friction, when the object starts sliding, the resistance offered by the surface. So this we are sliding the object, and still if I want to reduce the force, then we have discussed that we are having the rollers, the simplest type of roller, and besides that, if we want to check the roughness or smoothness of the surface, then I am having two cells. One is having plain surface and another is having the surface coated, wrapped with the sandpaper. So I am trying to roll down this both. You can see that this cell is rolling very easily. So you can see over here that this is having the rollers in the form of wheels, and this is moving comparatively very faster, and these rollers are made with the help of toothpick and the lids of the bottle. So here we can conclude that static friction is highest, less than that sliding friction, and the least frictional force is rolling frictional force. Now let us discuss that can we increase or how can we increase the friction, and second, how can we reduce the friction according to our requirements. Imagine few of the things. First, the sole of the shoes. Second, tire of your bicycle or tire of a truck. Then sometimes the players of kabaddi or any gymnast, did you observe them? What they are doing before performing their activity or before going for the actual play? In kabaddi, the players are keeping some porous substance, some rough substance, they are rubbing their hand with that for better grip. Likewise, on the back side of the shoes, if you are observing, then we can see some pattern. It is not the design to make the shoes more attractive, or while we are walking in sand to see that pattern. The purpose behind making that pattern, you might have seen this kind of different patterns on your shoes sole. So this pattern is actually making the surface rough, because rough surfaces are giving more friction, and as a result we can have better grip. We are stopping from the slipping. So one thing that we can increase the friction, that we can change the surface of the object. Likewise, depending on the factor as we have discussed, the second option we are having, that we can reduce or increase the mass of the object. If we increase the mass, the frictional force will also increase. But if I want to reduce the frictional force, can I do? Yes. Just like increasing, we can reduce the frictional force, and in that case we can use two things for reducing the friction. First thing, that we can use lubricants. What are the lubricants? Can you tell me? The oil, grease. These substances which we are using, bicycle if you are riding, then after some time we will have some noise in that. Somewhere the parts are getting rusted. So we are doing oiling in the cycle. Likewise, the hinges of the door. Right? You are seeing that in horror serials. The sound which is very horrifying. That is because of the constant frictional force between the hinges of the door. As we are doing the lubricant, we are applying the lubricants, or we are doing the lubrication. That means we are applying oil on the surfaces. What happens? Just now we have discussed that the surfaces are comparatively rough, which we are seeing smoothest. So as we are applying lubricants on them, these surfaces will little bit have these kinds of lubricants in between them, and as a result the irregularities will be less. It will not remain forever. It's temporary, means time to time we are supposed to use the lubricants, we are supposed to apply the lubricants. Second, we can reduce the friction by using the rollers. So, you might have seen the trolley bag, very heavy suitcases. Nowadays, everywhere we are having wheels at their bottom. First type of friction we had talked, that is static friction, when the object is at rest. Second, for this suitcase or trolley bag, I am having two choices. How I can carry it? I can slide the trolley bag, or I can slide the suitcase. And second thing, that I can roll down the bag or suitcase. Let us understand this with very simple activity. Suppose I am having this one book and I am having another book. These two objects are in contact with each other. This one surface, this another surface, they are in contact with each other. If I will try to push the first object, it will be pushed, but I have to apply the force of my full palm. That is the example of sliding friction. Just now this is at rest, that is static friction. So first static friction, second sliding friction. Now the third one. Instead of keeping these surfaces in full contact, I will use a roller. I am just putting a roller in between that. Now you can see that I can move this book with my one finger. So this is the explanation that by putting the rollers in between the surfaces, we can reduce the friction or we can apply the lubricants in between the surfaces. After the portion of increasing and decreasing or reducing the friction, we are having one more topic in our chapter, that does fluid giving force of friction or does fluid applying friction. Here the first question comes, what is a fluid? So fluid means the things which can flow. What you can imagine? Which things can flow? Two states of matter are there. One, the liquids, and the second, that is gas. The air is flowing. The water, if I am pouring, it will flow. So whenever you are doing swimming, then inside the swimming pool, you are supposed to have the frictional force given by the water. When the aeroplane is passing through the air, so similarly, air is also giving the opposing force. What is this force known as? So the opposing force given by the fluid is known as drag. Again, I am repeating, the fluids are the liquids and the gases. So it's not like that only solids are giving the frictional force, but the liquids and the gases, that means whenever we are doing swimming, the water is opposing our motion, and likewise if the birds are flying in the air, they are also facing the opposing from the air. So this opposing force given by the fluid are known as the drag. And how can we overcome the drag? So we are having the shape of the object. You can imagine, you can recall the shape of the birds. The aeroplanes has been designed based on that shape. Likewise, the shape of the boats or the steamer, you can imagine, that is taken from the shape of the fishes. You are knowing that the shape of all these objects are very much pointed from their starting point. And in that situation, the drag, that is opposing force given by the air or liquid, will be very less at the starting point, and object can cut the force of water, that is fluid, or the force of air very easily. And as a result, this type of shape, which is known as the streamlined shape, is designed to reduce the fluid friction.
आभार।